Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Duke of Italy, favorite lo-fi music YouTuber, and welcome back to another part in the long-awaited by about two people math rock chart review. Sorry for the delay in music content for a while, and sorry I'm not getting Minecraft out this weekend. Wasn't able to record that. It's not even just me that can be there on those, because with Minecraft I can only be so entertaining. So I need some friends to join in. So that's that. So today we're covering some more math rock. Last time we covered 15 albums. Today we're covering another 15. Quick little caveat about that. This is the last time we'll be covering 15 albums straight in one video. It's not as digestible as 10, which I'm going to continue with because we're going to end this with about 30. So, I'll just be able to pitch out 10 until the whole thing is done, which will mean I'll be able to get these out a whole lot quicker. It'll be more digestible for you guys, and I'm sure you guys don't want to listen to as much math rock in a row. Also, another reason why I'm doing like this, I kind of get burnt out on math rock after listening to so much in a row. I was cramming 2 albums of math rock a day, and it's all kind of connect stylistically, so it's not that fun to do that. You want kind of a break. That's an inherent flaw in these charts, is that if you lose your spot and you don't take notes or something like that, you just get kind of stuck. So they're not very consumable, but they're a good guide. So last time we covered a whole bunch of emo related records. Some of the highlights was Eunoia by Invalids, American Football's first album, of course, what a classic. Dads with American Radass, and a few other albums that were just great. Today we're going to conclude that before we jump into some different stylings of math rock. And that is one flaw I kind of want to point out with this chart just off the bat. The connections of Spiderland by Slint to pretty much every other album are kind of weak. Its best connections are actually to one album we'll talk about today, and probably an album we'll talk about later, because that album's less mathy and it's really hard to connect to other albums, but it does connect to an album today that does kind of connect better to some other albums, but I'll get into that. Basically, the strongest connection it has is Steve Albini, who's a producer of not even that album, but Slint's previous album. Anywho, let's jump back into the albums. Let's see what's concluding this corner of the emo part of the chart. So first we got Anthology by Color. This is a compilation record. It's all of the EP material, all of the material in general from band Color. So what we get here is it's a cool little polyrhythmic Midwest emo record here. The song Outer Space is actually not that heavy on the effects, but it actually feels quite spacey. The riff on Some Miles is hooky as hell, and I just really dig that. The song Shoots I can commend for being actually mathy, and not just tapping some twinkly line, which is actually a flaw tons of modern math rock has, so I'm really glad about that shift in pacing and style, for that matter. The track Unicorns has a really nice tapped out bass part, which I love my bass parts that are tapped out. They have such a nice sort of growly sound, so I'm big on that. Tallulah Is My Mother's Name is one of the more mathy tracks here, and it actually has a lot of energy to it, so that makes it pretty fun. Dinosaurs closes out the album with this really cool series of arpeggiating riffs, which I'm really fond of. I thought that was really cool. My only flaw on this album is that the lyrics were kind of just okay, maybe a little too twinkly at bits on the guitar parts, but overall it is a good record. And to round off the emo section, we have Algernon Cadwallader, if that's how you pronounce it. It's just crazy mathy names, with the album Some Kind of Cadwallader. Again, I'm probably pronouncing these wrong. Don't get mad at me. Emo loves to have the ridiculous names for no reason, so just blame the band. This is very technical and punky emo math rock with some very, very catchy melodies. The song Horror is longer than most of these tracks here, but just at 4 minutes, but it has some really nice builds, so it actually upholds its length perfectly. Yo Soy Milk has a lot of fun tempo changes, which as a prog fan, I'm a big fan of that. Also, the bass work is just to die for. The song Serial Killer States is actually awe-inspiring. This was my favorite track here. And then there's the 13-minute long In Response to Responsibility, which is actually built like a prog track. It's really sick. But overall, I think this is a great album and one you guys should definitely check out. So we've completed the emo portion of the chart. This takes us all the way back to the top, and then we go to this little tangent which gets connected to, in a couple albums after this, what is before Spiderland, which we get the album Ben-Hur by the band Bitch Magnet. So this whole thing starts off with the 9.5 minute long Dragoon, which what we get here is extremely tense. And I don't really kind of call it minimalistic, but it takes the style of Spiderland, where it can take minimalism and show such an intense growth of sound that it's so tense you could literally snap the thing with a butter knife. Between the sick riffing, really crunchy bass, really tight drumming, and utterly cryptic lyrics that Genius gave me zero indication to what it all meant, you have a phenomenal atmosphere here. Ducks and Drakes feels like a thriller with how intense the build is. Crescent concludes the album with all these shifts towards these like noisy elements, which I love my noisy math rock, so this album is just phenomenal. It's great. Absolutely listen. Just finished up another branch, so actually just 2 spots over, we go into a no vocals. This is Don Caballero with 2. And knowing a bit of Don Caballero before this, actually, What Burns Never Returns is one of my favorite albums. I wasn't really expecting no vocals from Spiderland to dip right into Don Caballero. What we get here is a lot more of a droney and noisy album, with a lot of really open and spacey moments. It's almost like a drone metal album in a way, but it's a lot more noise-based and a lot more feedback that builds into these walls of sound. And it's not really the same noise rock builds as Spiderland, but it still packs plenty of punch. Please Tokyo is this massive, over 11-minute long just burner of a track, which actually, towards the beginning, it had like an extremely angular version of the Schism riff by Tool, which this actually predates Lateralis, so I guess Tool might have actually taken it from this, but it's that same polyrhythm, which is the only way I was able to grasp it. Because knowing Don Caballero, they use the craziest polyrhythms all the time, which was a super gripping idea, and I thought it sounded wonderful. I could go on and on about this album just being just this insane, chaotic mess of an album, but I think you guys should actually check it out for yourself. It's pretty great. And then this actually goes angrier for Respect by Don Caballero, their debut album. So this is certainly a more angry record, but we get a lot more of a plain tone all around. Chief Sitting Duck has this really sick, driving bass groove, and it's featured with this monstrously huge guitar tone. Get an Inch actually kind of shows the droney influence that'll actually show up on Don Caballero too. Well Built Road is one of my favorite tracks here, with some really nice tapped out parts, which is followed by some really nice melodic lines. So you don't always get that in math rock. Normally it's like kind of one or the other, but you get a good combo of the two here. And now we reach on the chart kind of what I would define as the more electronic side of the whole chart here, which sounds kind of weird for math rock, but it adds a whole different layer of stuff here. We're about to see some post rock, some electronic stuff, some really energetic stuff. Not a lot of noise. We kind of already covered that with Don Caballero's first 2 records, but here we are. We're gonna need some punky stuff too, and lyrics do find a return. We start off with the band Adebisi Shank with the album. This is the album of a band called Adebisi Shank, which is one of their 3 albums. This is going to start the trend of a couple full lengths that are extremely short. This is just 23 minutes long. You Me has some insane progression, which alternates between tapped parts and some really thick distortion. One thing about this album that I think was really sick is that a lot of the notes that are played really quickly in succession actually sort of morph together into this wall of noise, and it like muddies itself just through the playing. It's just so blisteringly fast, it doesn't even register as separate notes, which actually gives it a whole another dynamic entirely, and it's actually something not a lot of math rock bands even attempt after this, so I applaud this album in particular for that. I also like the track Snake Ships because it has this really repetitive but really gripping groove. But yeah, I think this is a great album, and it's also just 23 minutes, so just get this on a break and listen to it. So after this, we get the Happier with vocals moniker for the self-titled Fang Island record. This is a tight 31 minutes long. So we get a pretty well-paced, riff-heavy, and interestingly toned math rock release here. There are a little bit of vocals, there's not much, but it's really just ooze, and it just kind of thickens the soundscape and provides a release after these proggy and more post-rock sections. Life Coach is a really fun track because it's got a really cool off-kilter rhythm. There are tracks like Sideswiper that have these really awesome post-rock style melodic builds that I'm a big fan of. And there are also plenty of these Animal Collective-esque huge moments that really deserve your attention. So I think actually Fang Island Self-Titled is one of the best albums in this section here. This is up with Bitch Magnet. And if you like the vocals, now we go to Terra Mellos with Patagonian Rats. So here we get a really noisy and punky style of math rock with a really good flow between the tracks. The thing about this album is that it has some whiplash-inducing switch-ups that are just so bizarre, and I don't know even how they would have been charted, but they're pretty crazy. It's got a fun mix of really angular solos with some super killer melodies at the same time, which is always pleasant to have something grip you before you get thrown into this whirlwind. Also, the song Trident has an awesome saxophone solo, which I did not expect, but I was very happy to see. Party with Gina has a roughly 9-minute runtime, but it's probably my favorite track here with some seriously winding progression. It's really cool. So for this album, I'd say the A side was good, but the B side was great. That's what really keeps your attention. So after that album, we go into weirder guitar tones with another Terra Mellos release, X'd Out. Unpopular opinion, I actually like X'd Out more than Patagonian Rats. Most people seem to disagree with me for some reason, but I guess I'll explain why I like it more. Another descriptor for this album is that it has simpler structures. This is certainly true. You can grip every section and it doesn't just feel like a wall of noise at points, which I feel like the first half of Patagonian Rats kinda did. The track Bite has this revolving drum rhythm that feels super sick. Overall, this is just a very energetic release, and it is kind of guaranteed to wake you up. I think this album is great. So back to Fang Island, we get this moniker for Extremely Similar with the band And So I Watched You From Afar with the album All That Bright Futures. So we get some somewhat twinkly math rock here with some really heavy bass tones. And we also get some fun guitar sounds, a little more on the unconventional side here. And we also get some repetitive but hard-hitting lines. The song To Stay Gold has some really hard-hitting melodies, and in a way, it's almost tapped in this sort of electronic soundscape that it kind of sounds like EDM in some bizarre way. It's very danceable. There's also a steel drum in here, and also it's accompanied by these chanting vocals, which stylistically wasn't really for me on this album. I thought the steel drum just kind of doesn't really give it what it needed here. It didn't really need that extra line of melody, but it's a stylistic choice that I can't necessarily be mad at. So it's okay. It's not my favorite though. The closer, Young Brave Minds, has also another progressive type structure, which these albums have tended to do so far. So in terms of this album, I prefer the more hard-hitting, energetic tracks rather than the more quirky, kind of interesting sound tracks. I like my energy. But this is a good album. In another similar album, we finally reach Battles with their kind of legendary album, Mirrored. So we get some very technical, very punky, and very aggressive math rock. So you got the song Atlas, which is the most popular song by the band, which has this really incredible rising sense of tension before this onslaught of chaotic rhythmic guitar just gets thrown into the mix for this crazy sense of sound. The song Tonto really upholds its 7-minute runtime with some really killer riffs. And the song Tidge also has a wonderful way of building tension. One thing about this album though, I was a little disappointed because I was told there's going to be more electronic soundscapes, there's going to be more hard-hitting. I will say this is a great album, but it didn't achieve that kind of legendary status that I was kind of expecting from it. Not that you shouldn't check it out, and not that I'm not going to be re-listening to it because maybe I was having an off day, I don't know. Then we get the 3 Trapped Tigers compilation, Numbers, which is made of their first 3 EPs, which every song is just a number. So here we get a loud and aggressive and very jammy math rock. The percussion on this album is utterly ridiculous without sounds. The song 1 has some crazy noisy shredding on the guitar over jazz chords on a keyboard. It's some slightly dissonant jazz playing on a keyboard. And eventually I found that this was probably one of the most unique albums in this corner of the chart here. Maybe not the most experimental, but one of my favorite just for how unique it sounds and how jazzy it is. And you know, if you want to pick out each of these EPs for what you would have appealed to you the most, the second EP has a lot more blissful moments. The third EP is very balanced. It has a good mix of these different sounds. And I gotta commend the track 10 for its build, very post-rock and very tense. I think this album is pretty great, and the whole ending here is very, very much for gamers. It sounds like a video game soundtrack. So if you want a video game soundtrack, if you're some weird guy who only listens to soundtracks, nothing else, but you really want to appeal to some other crowd when you're talking about music, go ahead and listen to Three Trap Tigers. They're probably your speed. And now if you add prog, we get Physics House Band with Horizon's Rapture. Now this is just a 24-minute long EP. Now this EP is actually very interesting. It has this just completely saturated in electronic effects sound, but it also kind of feels a little bit like free jazz with how chaotic it is. It's very jammy, which I like a lot. I think the bass work on here is just killer. And it's a very versatile release. No two songs here sound the same. And if any release on this album, this whole chart here, felt like jazz, this would be the album. That is until kind of the end, because we start diverting into totally different directions with the whole different, every song sounds different styles. A Braxical Solapse has this insane build before you get this really incredible yet cohesive tapped out guitar line, which is really interesting because you grip the melody like almost instantly, but it's so hard hitting that you just keep bobbing to it. But yeah, I thought this EP was great. So for our final Battles album, we get their second album, Gloss Drop. I watched Fantano's review of this just to research it. Don't listen to what he has to say. I didn't get anything he said from this, but except that this album is great. It's a very danceable type of math rock with a lot of dynamic shifts towards totally different directions. It's got a lot of tension, but it's not in a way that you wouldn't really be ready for. It's in a more accessible way. It's very groove-based, like the track Inchworm has a very gripping bass groove. The song Wall Street is just coated in electronics. The track My Machines is just straight up a noise rock track, and it's not even mathy, but it hits so hard that I'm not going to knock at anything. The song White Electric has this just wall of just crashing sound from this huge build that I was just dying over to hear. Very awesome album here. The final album I'll be covering today goes back to Adebisi Shank. Very similar, apparently. This is by You Slut! With Medium Baghdad. This is another short 25-minute full-length album, but it is very, very noisy. It even sounds like heavy metal at points. Every note on here is gripping. You will struggle to lose your focus. The shifts aren't that crazy, but normally they are very effective. The song Elton Chong, I don't know what that means, actually sounds a lot like Tool for some reason. There are some songs on here like Shell Sock that actually provide a really nice sense of progression with this blissful release after really tense moments before. So despite there only being 24 minutes on here, great album. I really liked it. So one more thing I actually wanted to mention before I concluded this part, because I know I'm going to forget this one album before future parts. There was an album released in 2020, the year that we're currently in, if you're watching this video recently after its upload, known as Horror in Heaven. This is by a band known as Aphalexia. This is a either one or two man band of which there's just a bassist and a drummer. All of the tracks have bass. About half of them have drums. What you get is a very post-rock, math rock kind of blend here. And I thought it was very, very well done. A lot of interesting tones. Most songs don't sound the same. I think the only flaw here is that the last two songs sound a bit like some previous songs here, just not done as well. Still very effective. Overall, I think it's a very great album. And if you guys want any supplemental listening after this chart, I recommend that album. So that's about it. I hope you guys are doing well out there. Hope you enjoyed this. Have any math rock recommendations? Go ahead and comment down below. I'll probably get to it later in the series, but it's against the point. I want to see what you guys like. That's about it. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Have a good one. Check out my social medias down below. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click like, maybe subscribe, and that's about it. Have a good one.